Hi, I'm Dr. Gemma, and welcome back to Cognitive, the Knitting Psychology podcast. Cheerfully and somewhat irregularly in business since 2008. Segments today may include what's on my hooks, needles, and spindles, a strategy, something I really like, put a lid on it, oh shoot, and blather. So sit back, put your feet up, pick up your knitting, crocheting, spinning, weaving, or dyeing, or any other yarny thing you're doing, and get ready to enjoy. Hi, it's Dr. Gemma, and welcome back to episode 16 of the new and rebooted Cognitive Podcast. Please be aware that I'm always glad to get comments from you. You can either comment on the blog page at cognitivepodcast, all one word, .blogspot.com, or on our group on Ravelry. You can also add yourself to our listeners map, and you can listen to or look at my YouTube channel, which is imaginatively named Dr. Gemma, 2 words, all spelled out. On the YouTube channel, you will find 1-minute flash tips for surviving the pandemic, and also some of my longer and most commonly used discussions of strategies. I am still reporting there will not be a cognitive fiber retreat in 2021. And those of you doing stitches, well done. Stitches at home. I have not been talking about it because stitches has always been one of my 2 or 3 excuses per year to buy yarn like it's going to go extinct. And I'm not doing that this year because I've been buying yarn like it's going to be going extinct for the last year. This is how I'm getting myself through the pandemic, sadly. When things get really tough, yarn. So I haven't been talking about stitches because to me it's like an alcoholic living in a bar. You know, it would be all about me buying yarn. I am, however, having a great time doing some deep dives into my stash. And that's been one of the rewarding experiences, I say as I look at 4 projects, all with new stash. Okay. Meanwhile, please, once again, do not try to get me to add you to my Instagram account or any of my social media because I get a lot of robo accounts and I used to work in a prison. So that makes me a little nervous. If you'd like to follow me, you can follow the blog. There is a place to click that. And you can also follow the group on Ravelry if you're still comfortable doing that. In the warm thanks department, well, I am still doing the February meme. And that is somebody posted a meme with different topics per day. And I've been having a lot of fun doing them. And one of them was about your fiber family. And when I tried to define it, I nearly broke my brain. And that's because I've been podcasting since 2008. And there's several thousand of you at varying degrees of closeness, and I'm so grateful to you. I hardly know how to say it. When I was trying to find a way to articulate that for the meme, I nearly got brain damage. I'm so grateful. So I think in the warm thanks department, I'd like to thank all of you. I'd really like to thank those of you who've been along for the ride for so many years. One of the things that happened when I posted about that meme was people who have been following me since the days I worked in the prison, which was about 2008 onward. Some of you checked in, and I cannot tell you what it means to me that 12 going on 13 years later, you're still here. I am so warmed by that and so gratified by that. There just aren't words enough. So thank you so much. Thank you to all the fiber friends who've grown even closer. I am surely one of the most fortunate podcasters and fiberistas in the world. The other thing that has been brought to my attention is one of these memes was about gift I have made. And I thought, wow, I actually went back to my Ravelry projects. I have 98 gifts on there, and I'm sure I missed a few, and I'm sure people who've been knitting longer than I have even more than that. I mean, I've probably gotten 98 gifts from Gigi Knitmore and Jasmine Knitmore Well, sort of. Anyway, okay, perhaps I exaggerated a twinge, but you know what I mean. From Lexicom, Lex, love you. So glad you like that shawl still. And so I was looking at the gifts that I've made. That's GIFT as in Thomas, not GIF things you put on the internet as images. And I realized I've been making mommy shawls for years, that one of the first things I ever knitted was for myself when I was going to give birth to my son almost 15 years ago. I knitted this very simple shawl pattern, a prayer shawl pattern, and I knitted it for myself and took it with me to the hospital. It was kind of this thing, I wanted to have it as my mommy shawl, that I knitted myself a shawl to be pregnant in bed with. I think I was about 8 months pregnant when I knitted it, which would make that about January of 2006. And it was a Lion brand yarn, homespun, and a boucle, something I would never knit in now because all acrylic. And I ended up saying to myself, well, that's my shawl to celebrate motherhood, so I'll take it to the hospital when I gave birth. And then giving birth was quite the roller coaster, including the day that my catheter got pulled out when I had a seizure, and my glorious pee filled the room and got all my clothes and all the baby clothes except for two things. The first project I ever made, which was a baby blanket for my son, and my mommy shawl. So the day I gave birth, by the way, when they took me into surgery, it was a C-section, and it was under some really horrifying conditions. And one of the nurses said, the nurse in charge said, let her keep the shawl. So it was very strange. I gave birth to my son with my mommy shawl wrapped around me and my glasses on. They let me have that in the OR. It may or may not be related that I found out later that they were expecting me to die in the recovery room. So I guess I was going to get to die with my glasses and my shawl on. But anyway, that shawl, you can imagine the importance the mommy shawl has to me emotionally. And it is still lying on my bed. And so every time someone I know is going to give birth, I make them the same cheap mommy shawl out of acrylic yarn. And the reason is, I cannot tell you the horrors that shawl has witnessed. I have bled on it. And, well, let's just, without getting graphic, let's just say I think all my bodily fluids and most of my son's have been on that shawl. And you know what? Goes through the washer, goes through the dryer. 15 years later, darn shawl looks pretty good. So I've been making them for moms to be ever since. When I got out of the hospital, first thing I did was I made one for my own mother, who was still alive at the time, in her favorite barn red. And I made one for my mother-in-law. I do not know what became of my mother's shawl when she died. My mother-in-law's shawl is actually hanging within my line of vision. My sister-in-law sent it to me as a remembrance after my mother-in-law died. So there it sits. It's a beautiful shawl, actually. It's a crocheted one, and I can't think of the name of the pattern. None of them are from a pattern called Mommy Shawl. They're all from Prayer Shawl variations. So the Mommy Shawl is the gift I have made, and it's very, very meaningful to me. And thank you, those of you who responded to it. If you have been a recipient of the Mommy Shawl, that's what I would want you to know about it. It is the shawl that is meant to go through Hades and back with you, and can still go through the washer and dryer. And no, it's not as nice for your new baby as a beautiful wool shawl in a thin and delicate yarn. No. Your baby won't like it. But you know what? Your kid can do anything on that shawl, baby, and it just goes in the washer and the dryer. So that's my warm thanks. And it makes me extremely happy that I was able to share. I think I put up like 16 of the mommy shawls and realized that's probably not all of them. Those are just the ones I remember to take a picture of. And often I forgot to take a picture of the new owner with it. And it is interesting because I do have pictures of people's babies with it. So I think it's interesting that mommies often miss the fact that the reason they're getting a mommy shawl is when you're about to give birth, everybody's giving you baby presents. And you certainly want them. I remember that. But it really did strike me when I was giving birth that I felt at times a little left out. Like everybody's paying attention to my baby and I'm going through this really wild experience. And the mommy shawl was a gift to myself. And the mommy shawls I have made ever since have been a way of saying to the new mother, Don't forget, you're really, really important in this, and other people do see you. Okay, so what else? Well, I posted a picture also, when we were talking about fiber family. I posted a picture of my fiber animals. And I didn't get all of them in. I believe I have Eleanor and Baron for the dogs, which those are the only dogs of my own that I've used as fiber animals. I have a little sample from Teddy, my first Newfie, but I have never really done anything with it. I need to knit it into something for my husband because it was his dog. Then I have a picture of two of our llamas, Quechua and Paz, who are and were super in their fiber, and Jubilee, because Jubilee is the alpaca who owns the place. And then I also, in the same picture, put some of the dogs I have spun at Sunnybank, and also a picture of me just running the show, I think, at one of the CFRs. So that's another aspect of the fiber family I'm celebrating. Well, the introduction had to be lengthy because what's on my hooks and needles? I have finished Dead Zero this week, but boy, have I had fun. In many ways, my works in progress are being held up by circumstances. So the Spectrum socks, you remember them, in the beautiful Roy G. Biv colorway from Rockin' String Yarn, they're being stalled by ambivalence. Yes, stalled by ambivalence. Because I'm looking at them and thinking, do I want to make long mittens out of these, long fingerless mitts? Because they're really beautiful. So while I was thinking about that, I got working on the Wild Lettuce shawl, one of Fickle Knitter's shawls, very easy beginner shawl, and got 5 repeats out of 8 done on the body, and then realized my needles are not long enough. So off I went to various people. I could not find the needles I wanted. Finally found them at yarn.com, that is Webs. However, I've been stalled by the U.S. mail. California, for all its problems, our mail has been going pretty well. The East Coast, on the other hand, is apparently just a rat's nest of screwed up mailing projects and post offices. So at this point, I feel like I could have hitchhiked out to Massachusetts, picked these up, and hitchhiked back and gotten them faster. But I have to say, I'm not blaming Webs. They've just been sitting in the postal system for 2 weeks. So that's stalled. So need I tell you that Twin Faces vest has still not made it to her in North Carolina? Well, you know what that means, right? I made myself one. It's vestuary. You got to have a vest in vestuary, right? So that's the one project that's been just booking along, is my vest for vestuary. This is the simple vest from Ann Budd's Knitter's Handy Book of Patterns. One of those books I will say 1,000,000 times I think everybody needs on their shelf. And I'm using a colorway in Malabrigo Rios called Pines. This is a really hard color to get. Everybody loves it, and I can see why. The vest is breathtaking. I've been very happy with it because I have been trying to get it a little more fitted than previous vests I've made. So I'm using all the stitch counts from Ann Budd's book for size 8 needles, 5 stitches per inch. That's what normally I get on a size 8 in worsted weight yarn. I'll get a 5 stitches per inch, but I'm using size 7 needles because I just wanted to tighten it up slightly. I love what I'm getting. If you go to the Blogspot page, you can see me wearing it backwards because I haven't done the front, but I've done the back up to the neckline, and it's fitted so well. I am really enjoying it. My only concern is, will it loosen up when I block it? I know several of you at this point, the more experienced ones among you, are tearing your hair out and screeching, why didn't you just swatch and wash the swatch? Because the last time I did that, it told me using size 8 needles would make the perfect fit on me. No, I am horrible about swatching, I'll be honest. For most of my sweaters, I have swatched and washed the swatch and all that. But for this one, I feel like it's an old friend. I like what I'm getting a lot. So we'll see how this works. And then there's the temperature blanket. Okay, talk about the project I never expected to fall in love with. This is it. You may remember, 3 or 4 years back, this was really in vogue. Everybody was knitting or crocheting temperature blankets. Now, let me be brutally honest here. I think knitting a blanket is the equivalent of staying up all night to study for a urine test. In other words, why on earth would you do it when you can crochet it? Yes, I know they look different. Yes, I know you made that heirloom quality blanket for your great Aunt Delilah. Yes, and I'm not criticizing it, but I'm not going to do it. Life is too short, and I have too many other projects. Did I mention that? So I've never been interested in a temperature blanket. I've always thought, what an interesting concept, but I can't get those hours of your life back, you know? And for some reason, in about November, it crossed my path again, and I thought, well, that would be fun, but I don't know. And then again, I live in Southern California. How much variation would I get? And I thought, well, I don't actually. I live 3,800 feet above Southern California, and we get snow every year. So then I thought, well, I don't know. Maybe I'll track the temperatures and just see what I think. The other problem was I thought this would be easy to pick colors, and it wasn't for me. Now, I know for many of you it would be. And there are a million brilliant color variations on this all over the web. I mean, there are people who just said, so hot weather will be black, like 100 degrees and above, and then 60 to 70 will be brown, and 70 to 80 will be Merlot wine. And I mean, people are coming up with these insanely gorgeous combinations, but they're randomizing the colors by using the temperature. And then there are the real people who like to really suffer, who are saying one stripe for the high and one stripe for the low every day. No. You're going to get a 30-foot blanket. So, I thought about all these things and said, actually, I think this would be beautiful in just a plain spectrum. So I went to everybody who sells plain spectrum color yarns and was overwhelmed. And then Knit Picks rescued me by coming up with the Hue Shift blanket, which is breathtakingly beautiful. But I'm not knitting that. I'm just using their basic spectrum kit for the Hue Shift blanket. And I know I've explained this before, and thank you for listening along. Having said that, I'm staring at a picture about the first 20 days of January on my blanket and just loving it so much. And the picture is in the blog and the notes in Ravelry, in the show notes. So anyway, I got the kit, finally. And last Wednesday, because I had the day off from work, I had nothing else to do, so I tore into the kit and started working out what temperatures would go with what colors. And meanwhile, I have been faithfully keeping track of the high temperature here every day. Now, there's some variation. It's not easy to get the high temperature where I live because I live above the town of Acton. Acton is actually easily 2,000 feet lower in altitude than where my farm sits. So I've had to sort of work on that a little bit. But nonetheless, I've had to just say close enough is going to suffice. We don't really have a good thermometer outdoors right now in an exposed spot. So I've been working on the temperature blanket, and I started it last Wednesday. And as I record this, it is Monday, February 22nd. And I'm about up to I think I'm at the 26th or 27th of January. I didn't expect to like it. Now, I went very, very simple. I decided to think of the temperature section as just being a topper on the very top of my queen-size bed. And I wanted it in acrylic because I wanted this thing to be pretty bomb-proof, because in my family, I'm the only one who's going to take care of nice yarn, and we do live on a farm, and we do meet moths every so often. So acrylic it was. The interesting thing is, I thought I was buying worsted weight yarn. I wasn't. I was buying sport weight, and I'm so grateful because in worsted weight, this thing would have been about 10 feet long. In sport weight, so far, so good. So what I did was I chained just to cover the top of the bed, and I thought that was going to be about 200 to 300 stitches. It came out at 225. And I chained in a color that I later expect will make the frame. That, in other words, any leftover yarn is going to go into knitting a framework that will go over the sides and bottom of the bed. So basically the center of the blanket will be the temperature stripes. And then depending on what's left over and what I'm feeling like, there will be a frame in squares, concentric squares, extending out from that middle section. So I'd like just the temperature section to be lying on just the top of the bed. So I worked with this and came out 225 chains. Well, 225, chain stitches cast on. And I cast it on in a color that I expect will be the immediate outer frame, and a color that I will not expect to use in the blanket. It's the indigo, no it's not, it's the violet of the Roy G. Biv of the Spectrum. And as I worked out the numbers, this would be, I think, 10 to 20 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's not going to happen in a high temperature here unless climate change gets even more drastic than I expected. But all my other colors should work into the top. So this is really, really making me happy. And then when I finish it, I will not finish it, obviously, till at least December 31st. And then I will spend next year doing the frame on it. And it's very addictive. I'm just doing a single crochet. There are so many beautiful patterns, people doing zigzags and corner to corner. Nope, I'm just doing a straight flat topper that will be a rectangle. Now, in terms of gauge, it's working out very nicely. I'm through roughly just under January, just under 1 month, and it's coming out to about 6 inches. So there's 12 months, 6 times 12, we're getting 72 inches. That's about right, because it won't be that I can tell already that my gauge is going to be a little tighter. And so in the very beginning, it feels looser, but as I go on, I've been measuring it incrementally. And so it looks like it's right now on track to be about 68 inches. And that's about right. I can handle that, just going a little bit over the top and bottom of the bed. So I'm very, very happy with the temperature blanket. And I just love the colors. So far, I've been using something called Tranquil, something called Alfalfa. We've got Canary, because we got into the 70s. And now we dipped into the 30s and 40s. So I've got, what have I got in there? Celestial and Marina. It's just a lot of fun. February's been a little colder than January. People did make comments like, when I said I'm on January 6th, people said, you should really mark that because of, the Capitol insurrections. And I was going to put some red in there. And then I thought, no, I'm not going to do that. That I'm really just going to stick to temperatures. But it is an interesting concept that you can make these blankets and you can crochet in a few odd colors for special events. But I'm not at that place. I also don't know if I want to spend the rest of my life thinking about the nightmare that was January 6th, 2021. On to what I'm currently wearing. I am wearing my beautiful socks in Burst, a colorway from Onyx Fibers. The heel is in a now extinct colorway from the former Abstract Fiber Company. If you want to see, these are probably one of the 3 most beautiful socks I've ever made. These things are gorgeous. I can't recommend Onyx enough. Her colorways are just breathtaking and very original. And I just think Burst is insanely beautiful. Also, I am wearing a cowl from the Fair is Foul version by Erica Hernandez. This was originally in Madame Defarge Knits. This might have been in one of the sequels, the Shakespearean sequel, I believe. Anyway, there were 2 versions of Fair is Foul, the Foul version and the Fair version. I did the Foul version, which I think is breathtaking. And I'm wearing, if you look at the picture, you'll see it's on the left. I made this in really beautiful colors first time. And then the second time, I don't know what happened. I had a screw loose or something. I made it in beautiful colors, but it doesn't show off the pattern enough. There's not a high enough contrast. This is called, the second time I made it in Malabrigo, in a color I thought was a grayish pink. I think it's called Plumo or Plumio. And then in Anniversario, which is reds and yellows and blues. What I didn't know was you really need to look more closely at all Malabrigo colorways. The second time I made it in sport weight, and that worked really nicely for me in the Malabrigo. And it is a beautiful, beautiful cowl, but it does not show the pattern off the way it should. So I pulled out the first version I made of it. This is quite old now. It's just beautiful. It's in sock yarn mini skeins. At several of the cognitive fiber retreats, we did mini skein trades. And so that's when the Madame Defarge Shakespeare book came out. And I just fell in, and that's Cooperative Press, by the way, I fell in love with Well, I happen to like Erica Hernandez as a designer. She doesn't design much anymore, which I really regret. I really enjoyed her designs. And I fell in love with this cowl. And so what I did was I used a mildly variegated pink that I want to say is from Oink Pigments. And it had just a little bit. It is very, very old. I got it on sale way, way back at a Griffin Dye Works retreat. We're in the Wayback Machine here. And I mean, we're talking like 2011, 2012. And it just has a little blush of darker pink. So the background color is going from pale pink to a slightly darker pink and back. And then I took my mini skeins and arranged them to look like a gradient. I was ahead of the curve there. And used that. I made like a super skein out of those. I tied them end to end in the color sequence I wanted. And so I have the two cowls there in the picture, and you really should look at it because it is this classic illustration of two things. One, color really matters. When you make a project, you've really, and it's, by the way, it's mosaic, I believe is the style of the stitch. You've really got to think about color, and you've really got to take your time and play with it, and you've really got to unwind those skeins and look. The other thing it will tell you is the difference between a sock weight and a sport weight. You can see the sock weight one, originally I put on weight myself, and I was too fat for it, if you can believe it. Now it fits me really well in my leaner, meaner diabetic form. But they're both pretty good fits now, but in slightly different ease levels. And so there's the picture. If you want to ever use this to show somebody the difference between yarn size, because same stitch count, just yarn and needle size. Now, when I originally made this, I was a little snarky and said, I followed Erica's instructions and mine came out narrow. Yeah, that's called gauge. So, do watch. What I did learn is that Erica Hernandez is a looser knitter than I am. And so, there's another lesson to be learned here about getting gauge right. But I'm lucky because the first one I made is absolutely beautiful. And I can wear it, and I love it. Okay. Still haven't gotten the latest electric eel wheel. The wheels are shipping from, I think, Taiwan. And I think they're now due in April, but I'm really looking forward to it. So this means I should get on to a strategy. You may remember that we are working on skills to manage distress. What do I do when I'm upset? And it's interesting because I'm noticing I've always talked about breathing when you're upset, and yet these are not breathing skills. They are. We're going to get to the S next week, and it could fit there. But it cracks me up. There's no acronym with the word B or the letter B in it. It cracks me up. There's no acronym with the letter B in it for breathe. Every now and then, you work with a protocol created by a clinician who's much more skilled than you are, than I am. And yet every now and then you go, why didn't she do this? Okay. Anyway, we're working on the acronym ACCEPTS, like Napoleon accepts defeat after Waterloo. I don't know where that one came from. And so we are on the T as in Thomas, but actually the T is for thought stopping. When you are really, really distressed and you just cannot stop the thoughts that are running in your head, you need to use thought stopping. This is one of my favorite strategies. I use this all the time because when I go to sleep at night, I have a really hard time thought stopping. I have so much on my mind at night. There are many ways you can thought stop, and our culture uses a lot of them. One of my favorite pop culture examples is the joke about when someone is saying something you don't want to hear and you put your fingers in your ears and you go, la, 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 la. That's thought stopping right there. I'm not hearing you, I'm not listening, and I'm not letting my brain process what you're saying. But I don't do that one, you'll be pleased to know. I think my husband would be completely justified in clocking me if I did that too many times. What I do is called reverse serial sevens. Pick a number between 1 and 1,000, count backward by sevens. So, for example, 459, 452, 445, 438, and so on. When I teach this in a therapy session, online or in real time, I will ask the patient to watch my face as I demonstrate it. Because what you will see is as I count backwards, my eyes will usually roll up somewhat, and you will see me focus on something other than the patient's face. And then you will see me focus on my internal thought process. You can see the change come over somebody's face. So try it someday as an experiment. Have somebody look you in the eye and try to count backwards by sevens. And you'll see them do this. Why does this work? Why is this the single most effective way to stop racing thoughts? Because human minds are capable of entertaining more than one thought at the same time. So you're lying in bed and you've had a really rough day, and you're lying in bed and of course you're thinking about, I got to go to sleep, I got to go to sleep, I got to get enough sleep, I won't be able to go to work tomorrow. And meanwhile, in the back of your mind, you're thinking about this thing that really upset you. And you're also thinking, oh no, I'm not going to sleep. So you got 3 different thoughts related going on. As I talk to you now, I have 2 different thoughts. That on the one hand, I'm formulating my words carefully and trying to monitor the speed of my speech. That could even be 2 thoughts. I'm also staring straight at my iPad, looking at my notes. So I'm capable of doing those 2 thought types at the same time. The only thing that we know of that blocks this, the only type of thinking which demands your entire attention and will not let you entertain any other form of thought, is mathematical calculation. That's why we do reverse serial sevens. Now, common things people say to me about this. I'm lousy at math. Great! This is really going to work for you. I can't do that because I'm a mathematical genius. All right, Sherlock, reverse serial 17s, reverse serial 13s. Challenge yourself. Reverse serial 26s. Actually, I prefer prime numbers, so reverse serial 29s. Torture yourself, Sherlock. And yes, I can do them. Because the other thing people say, and it's very true, is I have now memorized reverse serial 7s. Oh yeah. Back in the day when I got injured in the prison, I did reverse serial 7s so much I literally had memorized them from 1,000 backwards. I was doing them 30 times a day because I had so much trouble with racing thoughts when I had serious PTSD. And by the way, that's how you know I've tested this one, man. Now, when you have serious racing thoughts, you may do this not once a day, not 5 times a day. You may do this 40 or 50 times a day to control your thinking. The reason I say that, I doubt most of you are in that place. But you need to be realistic. When you're dealing with somebody who's kind of hysterical, you may watch them do it over and over again. You may prompt them to do it over and over again. So if you're really in a jam, you shouldn't look at reverse serial 7s or any form of thought stopping for that matter and say, well, I did it once and it didn't work. And I hear that all the time. I tried it and it didn't work. You didn't try it enough. That this is something you may have to do over and over again. Why? Your brain rewards you for worrying and anxiety. Your brain cannot tell the difference between anxiety and making a good plan. Humans are capable of anticipating the future and using past events as tools in a way that we don't think any other animal quite can do. And so our brain has developed in a way to reward us for this. The problem is your brain cannot identify with great specificity the types of thoughts you are thinking. It will sometimes confuse different categories of thinking. So your brain cannot tell worry apart from making a good plan. So it rewards you. And this would be great. And I would say, oh, goody, keep sucking endorphins from your brain and worry all you want, except your body does know the difference. And when you are worrying, your body sets off its internal alarm system and starts feeding you hormones that eventually, in the long run, will degrade your cardiovascular system. So, stressful job too long in your 20s, heart attack in your 50s. Sure, it takes a lot of time for these things to go south, for your cardiovascular system to degrade. But it will. So we don't want you to worry. We want to teach you to make a good plan instead. So when you're pointlessly worrying, it's because your brain is getting rewarded. So it goes, well, I should keep this up. You need not to keep it up. The other thing you need to know is humans are massively successful at reproducing and spreading across the face of the planet. And then our body doesn't care. After you've reproduced, your body's like, you can die, we got what we wanted. Or I should say nature says, I got what I wanted. Your species is reproducing. Die if you want to. Okay? And that's why these things happen. That's why you can have a stressful job in your 20s, but you don't pay for it till you're past reproductive age. Okay? So you do need to manage your thoughts, but you need to understand that humans work this way. We get biochemical rewards in our brain for both worrying and planning, because that has helped us to reach reproductive age, to reproduce, and to spread across the planet. So it's an interesting kind of problem we have, that our body is rewarding us for this, because the ability to think and plan has made us a massively successful species in terms of population and taking over different environments. Okay, but it doesn't help you to worry. In the long run, it is going to kill you. All right? So we want to be able to stop our thoughts. And yes, that is mindfulness. That is being in the moment and saying, I got to stop this. What I'm doing is not helping anything. And we're going to come back to that after we finish the S next week. Put a lid on it. We got the Ramertoff. We got the Ramertoff. We're going through a lot of survivor guilt that we killed a Ramertoff. This week I listened to my husband explain that, well, you know, it was really because it was old. It was not. It's a clay pot. We have clay pots from the Etruscans 4,000 years ago. For heaven's sake, if anything's going to outlast humanity, it's a Ramertoff. So we have been very careful. And again, my husband, he's like, okay, I put some water in it. Let's put a chicken in it. I said, read the instructions. They tell you, take a stiff brush and brush off the clay particles that may still be on it. So I made him brush off the Ramertoff and wash it carefully. But we did make a roast chicken in it. It was insanely good. I'd love to tell you what he put on it, but I don't think he did much. We are big fans of Penzeys spices. And we had gotten a sampler box when we made our last big order. About twice a year I make a big order from Penzeys and restock. And when you do this, there's a great advantage to it, because Penzeys will say, oh, we'll throw in this free sampler box. Or we'll give you this insanely good deal on hot cocoa for $2. Yeah, we did both those things. And we got this thing called Arizona Spice, and we are just loving it. Trying to describe a flavor is impossible. They think at Penzeys that this is a southwestern spice without too much heat. We think it's divine. We've been putting it on everything. Fried chicken wings, chicken roasted in the Ramertoff, pork loin. It's delicious. So I know he put the chicken in there after soaking the lid, and he filled the bottom with water and let it soak. Now the bottom of this Ramertoff is actually glazed. The bottom of my original Ramertoff was not glazed. 30 years ago, they weren't glazing the bottom part. They're probably doing it for strength. It didn't matter in the flavor. The flavor was insanely good. And I know it had Arizona spice rub on it. And I don't think it had much else. Maybe a bit of sea salt. So if you look in the show notes, you will see a picture of our happy little Ramertoff in her new home, which is our microwave. Our microwave is long extinct. It takes up a unique size in our cabinetry. And so we don't use it. And instead, my husband said, it's a really great place to keep the Ramertoff. So there is the picture of the Ramertoff in her nest in the defunct microwave. The door is on the microwave. I have the door open in the picture, but we're not that horrified that we've ripped the door off our microwave. In the meantime, I'm having a simply insanely happy day. It's Monday, as I said, and I got up this morning. Yesterday, I was just kind of afflicted with the blahs. So this morning, I woke up in that kind of, what would I call it, Tasmanian devil mood, where you're just spinning at high speed. So by noon, I had made hard-boiled eggs, the tomato coconut curry soup, brownies, 2 batches of cookies, cleaned the bathroom, cleaned the kitchen once. So I'm now moving on to doing floors. Also, you will see a happy picture of the first world chores of the day, including recharging the Ring video doorbell, which I talked about in a previous episode. Boy, we are loving that doorbell. If you haven't got a Ring, if you're a woman living alone, I'm going to tell you right now, get the cheapest version. Don't get the new souped up versions because they come with required subscriptions. But I did get a subscription eventually because they offered it to me for something insane. Like you can keep all these recordings and look at them for several days. And I think it was like $3 a month. But you do not need a Ring subscription with their original model. And we just love it. And it's like $90 and the thing is worth its weight in gold. And you can see a picture of our lovely Ring recharging. And also, you can see our other doorbell, Minerva, that it was very funny. I walked out the garage door. I walked out our front door. And I walked in the garage door. And she didn't realize it was me. And so I found her lying on the couch, staring pathetically at the door where I'd disappeared and meowing. So there's a lovely picture of our house panther, staring forlornly at the door, waiting for me to come through it. Shoot, I've been having a great time doing 30 minutes per day walking, except this week I took a break because I got my second COVID vaccine, and that will take up the bulk of the blather, I think. In the meantime, I have finished the Ring of Curry race and then the Viking Conquest race on YesFit. And I've got the link for YesFit. It's yes.fit is the website. YesFit, I don't know if they're still doing this, but a few years ago, they kind of went experimental. What they are long distance races. You buy the race, you can buy it at several different levels. You can buy it at the level of every day, I pay a few bucks and every day I pass mile markers and you show me beautiful pictures from Google Earth or from somebody's travel logs of the mile markers I'd be passing if I were actually walking this route. So for example, the Viking Conquest was around Norway. I saw a lot of Norwegian highways, and then periodically they will put in a special mile marker, which is some kind of cultural icon, and you can click on it. It'll take you to Wikipedia or to a local site or a museum site, and it'll give you information about that. These things are ridiculous fun. So that's the cheapest level, and I highly recommend it. The next level up, you can order a t-shirt or you can order a medal. The next level up from that, you get both. And sometimes they have other interesting little freebies or other things you can buy thrown in. I got a lot of these medals and then realized I don't really want the medals. And so I've bought some of the t-shirts when they've been cool, and it's been a lot of fun. But a few years ago, YesFit said, what if we made all the races free? And that'll hook you. You'll come and you'll get into this, and then you'll start buying medals, etc. I think they backed off that, but when the races were free, I'm not joking, I bought about 30 of them. So I'm working my way through them. I think many of them are now even extinct on their website. And the other thing, how do you keep track of this? There's a lot of ways. You can manually enter your walking. You can enter your steps manually, or you can sync your Fitbit or your Garmin, and I'm not sure if you can sync your iWatch or not. I actually don't remember. I don't think I had an iWatch when I was originally doing this. So I have synced my Fitbit, and I'm just really, really enjoying it. And I'm only doing like a mile or so a day, but I was very close to the end on Ring of Curry and fairly close on the Viking Conquest. So now I'm on one called the Road to Hana, and I'm working my way through it. There are days I wonder if they're accelerating my rate because these are old and extinct races. I don't care. I'm just having a lot of fun with this. If you go to the Blogspot page, you will see another version of this on the Walking #4 Fun, Walking for Fun website, where they do longer roads than, well, I don't know if that's even fair, but they do some things like medieval pilgrimage roads. And so Walking for Fun is absolutely free, and it does about the same thing, but no medals. And also on Walking for Fun, you can actually keep a log as you walk of what you're really doing and what you're seeing and what you think of what you're seeing, and everybody can read it. So I really, really like Walking for Fun, and that link is on the top right of the Blogspot page, okay? But these are 2 ways that I can motivate myself. There's another thing called 99 Walks, the numbers 99 walks. And you can pay them a lot of money and set goals, and they'll send you lovely silver bracelets with motivational sayings. I keep thinking about that because it's got a great community of women, but I can't motivate myself to collect bracelets that I don't think I really want. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'll do it one of these days, and I can give the bracelets as gifts or something, or prizes on the website. I'm thinking about it. But if you need to motivate yourself to keep walking, running, biking, or whatever, I really recommend YesFit and Walking for Fun. Something I really like. Well, you're probably tired of me talking about these paper replacements for note-taking. Sorry, I'm going to go on to the Rocketbook. And I put on the website the video from the company that makes them for the Rocketbook Mini, which is a tiny pocket notebook size thing. But what you need to know. So far I've been talking about computer technology to get a writing surface that is as comfortable as paper. And so that right away tosses out the glass top tablets, all the Android tablets, and the iPads. Because this whole technology I'm talking about evolved in response to the discomfort of writing on a glass top. That does not mean there's no reasons to write on a glass top pad, but those of us who like to handwrite don't enjoy it. And that kind of creates the distinction, because there are certainly artists who work on glass, who paint on glass. Don't paint on your iPad tablet, just saying. Unless you have a painting program, don't put real paint. Okay, just saying. That was a joke. But again, there's many of us who like to handwrite. I have to tell you too, as a clinician, handwriting is better for you than typing. Handwriting releases endorphins, typing doesn't. We don't know why. It is not about language. What you learn from that, it's something about the physical process of handwriting that is actually good for you. And it may be related to why knitting is good for you, that doing things with your hands. And then you think, well, why is typing not? I don't know, but it isn't. And, carpal tunnel. Okay. So, again, if you're not into this whole thing, that's great. But it's interesting because the e-ink technology, for those of us who like to write and have the sensation of writing on paper, but do not want to kill millions of trees in our lifetime, the e-ink technology evolved, I think, in response to the tablet technology, that people were saying tablets are wonderful, but here's the one thing they don't do. But at the same time, there's another technology developing side by side with the e-ink, and that is represented by the Rocketbook. These 2 guys went on Shark Tank. Shark Tank said it'll never sell. And like a month later, they were millionaires. And they constantly parody Shark Tank because of this, because none of the Shark Tank people would invest in them. So I'll tell you one thing about Rocketbook. Their videos are hilarious. But what Rocketbook is another variation on e-ink, but with a different focus. E-ink, like the MobiScribe and the Remarkable, is really about I like to handwrite. Rocketbook and its ilk, because there are several knockoffs of it, Rocketbook is, I have Post-it notes all over my desk, and I'm killing trees for nothing. And it's also about, I take a lot of notes by hand, and I don't want to spend a fortune on a Remarkable or even a lesser fortune on a MobiScribe. So Rocketbook is about the rest of us. Rocketbook is hugely used in colleges and universities, and companies will buy Rocketbooks for everybody on their team and brand it and all that sort of thing, put their company logo on it. Rocketbook is a really simple, brilliant concept. In the first place, it is a surface that you write on. You use the friction pen line to write on it. Papermate, I believe, is the maker of the friction pens. So you can buy the pens in any store. This is interesting because when you're in the e-ink world, you get the pen with the e-ink tablet, but you do occasionally have to replace nibs. And then, of course, if you're trying to use an Apple pen, you got to keep recharging the bloody thing. I'll give it credit. It's not that onerous, but you do have to recharge it more. You have to recharge it. You don't have to recharge any of the other stylus lines. okay? So the interesting thing about the Rocketbook is you can walk into Staples or Office Depot and pick up the pens, and they're not expensive. You get them all different colors, whatever. So that's interesting. And the other thing is the surface. You write on the surface. It's got nice friction. It's not glassy. It's not too slick. It's slightly slick compared to paper, but not terribly. It's okay to write on. But you write on it, and as long as you don't engrave, you don't dig your pen in real hard. So little kids might have a harder time. That's what I'm saying. Because little kids tend to engrave with their pens before they learn to write with a lighter pressure. But as long as you don't do that, you can just take a little bit of water and you can clean it. You can wipe it right off. And this means every single page is good for, as far as I can tell, hundreds of uses. I bought 2 Rocketbook Minis because I got a deal. And I've never gotten to a point where I can't reuse a page. I spent months on the job from Hades using one page and just kept erasing it. And that leads me to the next point. Oh, Gemma, what if I wanted what I had on that page? Yeah, that's the brilliant thing. There's a QR scan code on every page. And so when you like your notes, you just run your phone over them. Now, Rocketbook has its own app. And the Rocketbook app is a free app, and it's brilliant. Because what happens is it automatically reads the QR scan effortlessly. You really just wave your phone over the page. But it also gives you 7 icons. And you can program by assigning those icons to different locations where your notes go. So I used to send my notes, I would have them texted to me, to my phone, so I could read them and review them. I used to send them to my Remarkable. I used to send them to, what else? My iCloud at one point. And I used to send them to Dropbox. So you get 7 different locations. You can send every single page to any or all of those locations. So that's the Rocketbook app, but you don't even need it. You can just take your regular photo app, your camera app on your phone. And if it reads QR, it's going to read and save it to your phone as an image. So you can add the Rocketbook app if you like. I happen to really like the Rocketbook app. Now, since I moved home to work, I haven't been using my Rocketbook Minis very much. I really am reliant on my Remarkable. But when I had an office with people coming and going, the Rocketbook replaced my pad of Post-it notes. That instead of using Post-its, I used the Rocketbook. And at the end of the day, I would go through and scan the notes to wherever I wanted them to go. When I was in Yosemite, this really saved my bacon. That in the middle of the first day, my Remarkable ran out of charge. I didn't realize I hadn't charged it before I left home. So I did my first day's journal in my Rocketbook Mini, which I did not mean to have with me, but fortunately I did. And then I just sent them to the Remarkable, which I did manage to recharge. How did I recharge it? In my car, I guess, from my car engine, driving over to the west part of the valley of Yosemite. So I'm a big fan of the Rocketbooks. They come in many different sizes, from A4 down to the Mini. You can choose what you want. And if you don't want to spend $200 on the MobiScribe or $400 on the Remarkable, I really recommend these things. They're brilliant. And if you like to handwrite, there is an OCR program for all of these things. I haven't talked about it much, but MobiScribe, Remarkable, and Rocketbook will use OCR to transfer your notes to text. And then you have to put it in a text editing program like Word or WordPerfect on your computer. I think you can do that on the Remarkable and the MobiScribe, but I find them both very clunky to do that on. So I'll usually, anything I really want in text, like notes from a meeting that I want to give to other people, I will just share them that way. I will export them and then correct the text and then email it around. The upshot of all this technology is you're getting rid of papers, you're not killing trees. And I have really, really enjoyed that about all of these. That I have so much less trash in my life. The other thing is you can be really creative when you go to a meeting. Now I have scan programs with OCR on my phone, on all my tablets. They're free from Adobe. I no longer take handouts at meetings. I take scans of notes and then I will transfer them to the Remarkable or sometimes the MobiScribe now, I suppose, and I will then edit and write my own notes on the handouts. So this is how you stop doing handouts. All of these technologies, and I'll let you do the math in your head, all of these technologies let you share notes between a team without distributing paper. This is why they're worth the trouble if you're not into the handwriting thing. Now, and in all fairness, any good Android tablet, if you're thinking clearly, and an iPad, will let you also do this. Again, it's a question of how do you want to take notes on the handout. So somebody emails you notes for a meeting. The most comfortable format for me would be to put it on the Remarkable and take notes. You could force this on an Android or Apple tablet. You could force it, but again, the note-taking experience and the saving and the transfer is awkward and unpleasant. You have to give the MobiScribe and the Remarkable credit. That's what they're designed to do. The Rocketbook line is about taking handwritten notes at high speed in a meeting or in a class, not necessarily on a handout. The tablets are obviously a whole different thing. You know, the tablets are about so many other functions, email, the web, various artistic functions if you're into that. You know, there's so many other things you do with a tablet. But this niche about how do you reduce use of paper in an office setting, how do you save things easily and conveniently without killing trees, how do you take notes when you genuinely want to handwrite, how do you transfer notes, how do you add notes to a PDF or to a scan, save the notes in that same scan as part of it, and then transfer it around. That's what the e-ink and the Rocketbook type technology does for you. Okay, the blather. So I got my second vaccine. Got it on Wednesday. And I was a little reluctant to say I was going to get it because after my first experience where I literally got blown away and didn't get it on the day I was supposed to, had to get it the next day, I was very concerned about how's the second shot going to go. Second thing is, there is a lot of negative press about the second shot, and there's a lot of negative press about the lines, about how you do this. And, you know, the first time I got a shot, they were somewhat disorganized. They were really working out a lot of this as we went. The other thing was, I got my first shot on the day Biden was inaugurated, and you should not take that lightly. Because, remember, I'm sorry to be political. No, I'm not. Not really. Trump had no plan. And every state was supposed to run it themselves. And that was really reflected in the way healthcare workers got their first shot. That it was just disastrously badly managed. And one of the things Biden brought with him was the promise, we're going to organize this. And yes, now that we have the Fed putting time and money into this, not surprisingly, my second shot went just fine. It was very interesting. First of all, now I'm speaking for California. I am still in the category of healthcare workers, and I am Tier 1A, the first tier. We are technically on Tier 1B, people over 65 and healthcare workers. Okay, and they're anticipating, I think the last I heard was on March 1st, they're anticipating going to the next tier, which would be food service workers and teachers, among others. Some interesting things have happened, and I haven't kept up with all of this, but we do get notices as healthcare workers. Here's what you need to know. Here's what you can tell people, blah, blah, blah. They've had to recategorize certain categories because one of the things that happened was, like many states, California said, oh no, we gave out all these first vaccines. Now we're log jammed with people who need a second vaccine and people who want their first vaccine and are eligible. So California stopped giving first vaccines, I believe, temporarily. And then they just said, anybody who got their first vaccine, don't call us, we'll call you. I was really nervous about that. They did. 3 days before I got it. Is that right? 4 days. And I got an email, said, congratulations, we're going to vaccinate you on Wednesday. And they gave me the location, and I had to go through and confirm. I had to answer questions about, did I have a reaction from the first vaccine? How did that go? And they gave me all sorts of warning, and they gave me the appointment. And they said the usual, don't come early, because, we don't want you waiting in the line, blah, blah, blah. Okay. They also said, bring your white card, the card I got when I got my first vaccine. The card that said which vaccine, which batch number, and the day I got it, who gave it to me, and the location. And on the back it said when you get your next one, which was on Wednesday, the same date. Okay. So I take my white card and I go real early. No traffic jam, no disorganization, no crazy, no windstorm. I'm really grateful for that. Instead of standing for an hour, I stood for about 15 minutes. It was all healthcare workers. It was really obvious. I was almost the only person not wearing scrubs. And they just said, pull out your white card and pull out your driver's license or any picture ID. And there were people still eligible for their first shot in the line, apparently. There weren't many of them. And the fire department, again, was who I got it from. And they were not giving you any grief. They'd also come up with a policy that I respect, saying, if you have the white card, we don't care what tier you're in. In other words, if you got a first shot somehow, just get in line and we'll give you the second shot. They're not arguing about people who cheated or jumped the line or anything like that. I don't know if anybody did. I know people tried. There are a few famous cases, as well as the ones I witnessed when I was getting the first shot, people trying to jump the line and force their way into the line. So this time, it was utterly peaceful. I stood in a short line. They marched us through. They checked your white card. They read it carefully. They looked at your photo ID to make sure you were that person. And then I just went in the tent. They asked me what side effects, if any, I got from the first shot. I told them that a week after I got the first shot, I got what's been called COVID arm. I got a rash around the injection site. It was like a high ridge of irritated flesh that went 3 inches in either direction. It was annoying and nothing else. They said, you did not get that until a week later? I said, yes. They said, then you're good. They gave me the shot. I went and sat in the waiting area. I was really nervous. I don't really know why. Again, the shot didn't hurt at all. And I sat there for half an hour just to be sure, felt fine, went back to my car. And in my car, I thought, my goodness, I'm tired. I really didn't sleep enough last night. And I looked at my Fitbit, which said, yeah, you did. That's odd. I got halfway home, said, okay, it's caffeine time. I was really, really tired. So I stopped, had a nice lunch, drank the biggest whopping Diet Coke I could get, drove home, and the rest of the day was like this slow slide into semi-consciousness. I was really tired. But that's all. And, well, there was one more thing. As evening approached, I realized I was wearing an awful lot of clothing, and nobody else was. And the house was really, really cold, except it was 70 degrees, because I turned up the thermostat myself. And I began to realize, my goodness, I'm getting cold. Now, I do not get fevers easily because I have a malfunctioning thyroid. When most people would get a fever, I don't. It's hard for me to get a fever. I say this because I suspect I was supposed to, and my body just said, nope. So by the time I went to bed, it was 8:30 at night. I could not keep my eyes open for love or money. I had a ton of caffeine in my system. Did not matter. Not in the least. I went to bed with a heating pad and a heater turned on, a space heater in my room, and the house set at 68 degrees, wearing an enormous amount of clothing. And all night long, anytime I stuck any part of myself outside of the blankets, I thought, oh, the front door of the house must be open. It must be about 30 degrees. Actually, it went down to 50, and no, the front door was not open. And yes, the heat was at 68 degrees. I woke up the next morning and realized I think that was my reaction. Now, I had gotten the shot almost exactly on the nose, 10 a.m. on Wednesday. I wake up Thursday morning. I'm still cold, but it's not terrible or very unpleasant. I'm not feverish. And as long as I was bundled up, I wasn't particularly getting chills. I just was really cold. By morning, my neck was very stiff. I felt like I had run a long-distance race. My limbs were stiff. The weirdest thing. At 1:45, I'm sitting in my study, all bundled up, with a heater, thinking maybe I won't see patients, because I didn't have patients until 2 o'clock that day. 11:45, I swear to you, I'm sitting here, and it was like this cloud gathered in my body and rose out of my head and left. And I felt completely normal. So 26 hours after I got the shot, completely normal. I just started taking off woolen outerwear. Turned off the heat. Everything was fine. Saw patients. Felt completely normal. I have been a little tired. That's the only thing I would say is I think, I got it Wednesday at 10 a.m. I think through Saturday, I was kind of low energy. but not fatigue would be too strong a word for it. No brain fog, no problems. Now, did I do anything special beforehand? I did ramp up vitamin D as in dog, D3, because we know D3 helps with COVID. Now, remember, the shot does not contain COVID virus. It contains the messenger RNA used to make COVID virus, all right? So I just thought, why not? I'll ramp up my D3. I ramped up magnesium because I was beginning to experience sleeplessness and thought perhaps I should do that. I also started taking melatonin, a very small dose, 5 milligrams a night, because there is some good research that it started with melatonin seeming to help people with COVID, but it turns out, no, that's not the issue. The issue is it's not about melatonin shortage. It's about not getting enough sleep, that bad sleep routines seems they possibly make you more vulnerable to COVID and may make your COVID infection worse if you get it. So I don't know, again, the jury is still out on these things. But if you're wondering, did I do anything special? No. I thought I would load up on antihistamine because I was worried about getting the rash again. By the way, it is now Monday, so it's been 5 days, no rash. And also, yes, I got a lot of soreness at the injection site. And that lasted 48 hours, and even that went away. And for a few days, I had like a swelling, but no redness. And at night, every night, I've been taking one over-the-counter Benadryl pill. Not for this, but because at night, I tend to get a little wheezy at night when I lie down. So I've been taking that anyway. I didn't take it because of the vaccine. So I don't know if that's mattering or not. But that's all I've been doing, and it hasn't been a big deal, and I feel terrific. If you look at the Blogspot page, you will see a series of cards that were put out by an East Coast healthcare organization. Let me see if I can read the name. Amanda Well Health. Okay. And it's got all sorts of good information. A card called Please Get Vaccinated, what it means that COVID has a 99% survival rate. Does this mean you do not need to get vaccinated? Hint, you do. It has a card comparing the Pfizer versus the Moderna vaccines. It has a card about what the side effects are and why they are not from COVID. They are from your immune response ramping up. It has a card with the ingredients in the vaccine so you can check to make sure you're not allergic. It has a card describing what it means that these vaccines are messenger RNA vaccines, and it has a card with all its references for the previous cards. So if you'd like to see some good vaccine information, this is what I've been giving out to my patients. Wow, that was a big one. So here I am. And by the way, yes, I did buy the t-shirt that says, "Don't worry, I'm vaccinated," long sleeve t-shirt. I couldn't help myself. I did not buy, out of respect to the nursing profession. There is a slogan going around that the nurses have put on a t-shirt, and it's variations on this, but it's something like educated, caffeinated, vaccinated, dedicated. It's at least 3 out of those 4, if not all 4. And apparently this has become a thing with nurses. And I was going to buy that shirt, but I thought, you know what? I am dedicated. I am a healthcare worker, and I have continued to ramp up my availability to manage a pandemic. But I am not in the league of the nurses and doctors on the front line who have worked the ERs and worked the COVID units. And so I just thought, you know what, nurses, you own that shirt. And I'm so grateful to you because in the limited role I have played as a healthcare worker during the pandemic, it's been a very hard year. And I have known nurses who've had COVID twice now. Before they got the vaccine, I've known nurses who got COVID from their job after they got the first shot. It wasn't enough to keep them immune. You need 2 shots, and have had to start the process over. I can only say I am humbled by your dedication. And if you want a special t-shirt just for you, far be it from me to worm my way into that one. Thank you for your service. Okay, and so there we are at the end of another episode. Well, I was worried I didn't have enough to say. Look at that. It's over an hour, my goodness. I was going to tell you all about the books I was reading. I'm like, wow, I'm so out of things to say. I'll tell them about my historical mysteries. Another time. But in the meantime, yes, I hope that answers questions about the vaccine. I hope that gives you the confidence to get the second shot. What I would tell you, my one piece of advice really that I think is really valid, whatever else you do, take that day off. Like expect, 24 hours where you really want to just sit at home and take care of yourself and start your temperature blanket project if you must. Snuck that one in. The other funny thing, I know people older than me who've gotten 2 shots. No problem. No reaction, nothing. I know all these young people who got really bad reactions. What is that about? And I can't explain it. But what I want you to realize is I've heard everything from everyone at this point. I've had people in their 70s who got more reaction than I did and people who got very barely any reaction. I know people in their 20s who lost 3 days of work. Nothing like that happened to me. And I think it's nice that I took the melatonin and the magnesium and the antihistamine. Well, I didn't take the antihistamine as preventative, though. They were careful asking me about that. But it's nice I took the magnesium and the melatonin and the D3. But I honestly don't think that did it. I think it's about self-maintenance and self-care. So good luck, guys. But I would tell you right now, I've had COVID. You don't want COVID. You'd really rather go through this. The shot is nothing compared to what I went through last March. Nothing. So you should not worry about this. Okay, so having said all that, please, thank you so much for listening. Please get your shots. Please get your vaccines as soon as you can. Please remember to wear your mask. Please remember to social distance. Please wash your hands. And most of all, please stay safe. Take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. So we have come to the end of another episode of Cognitive. Please do not use this podcast to diagnose yourself. If you think you are having a mental health problem, please contact a licensed mental health professional. Show notes for these episodes can be found at cognitivepodcast, all one word, .blogspot.com. Episodes can be found at iTunes under the name Cognitive Podcast, but also can be found posted next to the show notes on the Blogspot page. Thank you so much for listening. Everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.